You felt this before. You know there's something you should be doing, something that actually matters. You even tell yourself you're going to start. But
Yeah.
somehow, you don't. You delay it, you avoid it. Tell yourself you'll come back to it later. And it doesn't feel like laziness. It feels like something else. But what if the thing you're avoiding is actually the thing that matters most?
Wow.
Yeah. I've actually been thinking about those lines a lot since we decided to do this deep dive today.
Right.
Because, when you hear that opening question, you don't even really have to search your brain for an answer.
No, it's immediate.
Exactly. The answer just sort of appears, like an image flashes in your mind right away.
Yeah, it's that novel sitting in a drawer somewhere.
Or the business plan. Or, maybe it's that really difficult conversation, you need to have with your partner.
Oh, yeah. The one you've been putting off for, 6 months.
Right. And the moment that image appears in your head, there is a literal, a physical sensation in the body.
Like a tightening.
Yes. A tightening in the chest. Or this, sudden sinking feeling in your stomach.
Followed by a sudden, overwhelming desire to go, I don't know, organize your spice rack.
Literally. I actually spent 3 days last week color-coding a Notion workspace.
Wait, 3 days?
3 entire days. For a project that I haven't even written the first sentence for.
Oh, wow.
I know. But, I convinced myself I was being incredibly productive.
Oh, of course you did. We all do that.
Right. But what we are looking at today, drawing from these concepts in Steven Pressfield's The War of Art, it just completely shatters that illusion.
It really does. It kind of ruins your ability to lie to yourself.
It totally does. So for our mission today, we are going to explore this space, the gap between the life you're currently living and what the text calls the unlived life that's waiting inside you.
Which is a beautiful way to phrase it, honestly.
It is. We're unpacking this invisible force that just actively prevents us from crossing that gap.
And, to really get into this, we have to start by completely discarding all those labels we usually slack onto that feeling.
Right, like the laziness label.
Exactly. Like when you were color coding your Notion board, you probably told yourself, I'm just preparing.
Definitely. I was getting organized.
Right. Or on the days you literally do nothing, you probably just call yourself lazy.
Oh, 100%. I beat myself up about it.
We all do. We say, I lack discipline. Or we blame our schedule.
Or the kids. Or the economy.
Exactly. But what we're looking at today suggests that this phenomenon actually has a name. And it is a distinct active force.
Capital R, resistance.
Resistance, with a capital R. And the fundamental premise here, the thing we really have to grapple with, is that resistance is not an external problem.
Meaning it's not your boss.
Right. It's not your micromanaging boss. It's not your demanding family. It is entirely self-generated.
Which is a tough pill to swallow.
It's very tough. It is a hostile internal operating system.
Calling it an active force kind of changes the entire paradigm for me.
How so?
Well, because we usually think of avoidance as this, passive state.
Right. Like a lack of energy.
Yeah, an absence of action. Like a car that just, ran out of gas.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But you're describing something that actually has an engine of its own. Something that is actively, aggressively pushing back against us.
Oh, yes. Think about the mechanics of gravity, right?
Right, okay.
Gravity isn't a lack of floating. It is an active physical law that pulls objects toward the center of the Earth.
Right, it's a constant pull.
And gravity doesn't care if you are a philanthropist trying to build a hospital or a criminal fleeing a scene.
It pulls both of you down exactly the same way.
Exactly. It exerts the exact same downward pull. It is entirely objective, and it's completely impersonal.
Okay, I follow that.
So resistance functions the exact same way, but just in the psychological and spiritual realm.
Like a psychological gravity.
Precisely. It's this energy field that radiates from any work and potential, and its sole aim is to repel you from doing that work.
So I want to push back on that a little bit, or at least test that theory.
Sure, go for it.
Because if it's an impersonal blind force like gravity, wouldn't it pull us away from everything equally?
That's a good question.
Because it really doesn't. I have absolutely no problem playing a video game for 4 hours straight.
Right. No resistance there.
None.
Yeah.
Zero friction. I don't feel a tightening in my chest when I decide to binge watch a series on Netflix.
Of course not.
I only feel that repulsion when I try to do something very specific, like writing. So how can it be a blind force if it seems to have a highly specific target?
So the metaphor that the text uses for this, which I think is brilliant, is the compass.
The compass, okay.
Yeah. Imagine a magnetized needle floating on a little surface of oil.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
That needle will unfailingly automatically point to true north. Well, in the landscape of the human psyche, resistance is that needle. And true north is the exact calling or action that your soul most needs to do to evolve.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Resistance doesn't care about the video game because the video game doesn't threaten the status quo of your life.
It's just maintenance.
Exactly. It only activates when you try to move from a lower sphere to a higher one.
Okay, so what defines a higher sphere versus a lower one in this context? Because, that sounds a little subjective.
It does sound subjective, but it's really about elevation versus stagnation.
Elevation versus stagnation.
Right. A higher sphere is anything that involves, say, taking a moral stand or launching an innovative enterprise.
Or going to the gym, maybe?
Yes. Embarking on a program of physical or spiritual advancement. Pursuing any calling in the creative arts.
Basically anything hard.
Anything that rejects immediate gratification in favor of long-term growth, health, or integrity.
Okay, so then a lower sphere is?
A lower sphere is anything that keeps you exactly where you are, or anything that just numbs you. Like, if you are dedicating your life to working in a nonprofit, doing really meaningful work,
Right.
and you suddenly decide, you know what? I want to abandon this calling to launch a career in predatory telemarketing.
Oh, God.
Resistance will grant you a completely friction-free descent.
It won't fight you at all.
Not even a little bit. It only fights you when you try to elevate.
That is. Man, that completely flips our understanding of fear on its head.
It really does.
Because if the resistance is strongest when the action is most tied to our own evolution, then the dread we feel isn't a warning sign.
No.
We usually think fear means, stop, you're doing the wrong thing.
Right. But it's actually the ultimate confirmation that you are doing the exact right thing.
That is wild.
The rule of thumb here is that the level of resistance is directly proportional to the amount of love you feel for the project.
Wait, love?
Yes. If the project meant absolutely nothing to you, if it was completely devoid of meaning, there would be zero resistance.
So the fear is tied to the love.
Exactly. We think the opposite of love is hate, but it's not. The opposite of love is indifference.
Wow.
So the very fact that you're paralyzed by fear is actual proof of your aspiration.
Proof that you care.
Deeply.
I really struggle with the biological logic of this, though.
How do you mean?
Well, let's look at the human immune system, right?
Yeah.
Its entire job is to protect us from foreign invaders, to keep us healthy.
Right.
Now, sure, sometimes it gets confused and causes an autoimmune disease where it attacks healthy cells.
Which is awful, yeah.
But generally speaking, our biology works to keep us alive and thriving.
Right. Self-preservation.
So why would our own minds contain a mechanism that actively, aggressively repels us from the exact things that would bring us joy?
That's the core paradox.
Like, why does the mind sabotage the soul's evolution? It just doesn't make evolutionary sense to me.
Well, to understand the origin of that self-sabotage, we actually have to look at the structural division of the psyche.
Okay, lay it on me.
Specifically, it's this battle between the ego and the self.
The ego and the self.
Yeah. The ego is the part of your mind that is tethered purely to material existence and evolutionary survival.
The lizard brain kind of stuff.
Exactly. For hundreds of thousands of years, the primary directive of the human brain has been essentially caloric conservation and tribal inclusion.
Don't starve and don't get kicked out of the village.
Spot on. The ego's job is to keep you alive, and it believes that safety is found strictly in the familiar.
Okay.
It wants you to stay in the cave, conserve your energy, and definitely don't do anything weird that might get you exiled from the group.
So the ego views any kind of growth or any deviation from the norm as a literal threat to your physical survival.
Precisely. If you write a brilliant novel or you start a disruptive business,
Or even just like setting a strong boundary in a toxic relationship.
yes, if you do any of that, you are stepping out of the known hierarchy. You are passing a point of no return.
You're leaving the cave.
You're leaving the cave. You are discovering that you possess the capacity to steer your own ship.
Which means...
Which means you no longer need the safety of the tribe's mediocrity.
Oh, wow.
And the ego is absolutely terrified of this independence.
So it produces resistance.
Exactly. It produces resistance as a defense mechanism to stop you from outgrowing its control.
That's so messed up.
It really is. The ego would rather you be miserable but safely blending in than realized, authentic, and exposed.
That is incredibly dark if you think about it.
Oh, it's very dark.
Our own desire for safety is literally the architect of our misery. We are basically holding ourselves hostage.
We are our own jailers.
And the cost of that hostage situation is staggering. I mean, it's not just a matter of having fewer paintings in the world or fewer startups.
No, it goes much deeper than that.
The source material argues that yielding to this force is deeply, fundamentally toxic to the human spirit.
It describes it as the most toxic force on the planet.
More than disease.
More destructive than disease or poverty.
Yeah.
Because when you yield to resistance, you actively deform your own spirit.
To twist yourself out of shape.
Yeah. You create this pervasive, low-grade misery that just infects everything you do.
Like a background radiation.
Exactly. You feel restless. You feel this vague sense of guilt that you can't ever quite pinpoint.
Yes. That unexplained guilt.
Right. You snap at your partner, you feel unloved, and frankly, you feel unlovable.
And when that misery mounts to a pitch that just becomes unendurable,
we look for a release valve.
Which is where our modern coping mechanisms come in, right?
Absolutely.
The mindless doom scrolling on our phones, the substance abuse, the chronic consumerism.
Yeah.
Buying things we don't need.
It is the root of so much of our destructive behavior.
It really makes you think about the cultural implications of all this.
Oh, it's massive. Just think about it. If everyone woke up tomorrow with the sudden ability to bypass resistance.
Just skip right past it.
Yeah, and take the first step toward pursuing their true calling, entire industries would collapse overnight.
They really would.
The market for endless distraction, from, certain sectors of social media to binge drinking culture, it's largely subsidized by the unlived lives of millions of people.
People who are just trying to numb the pain of their own stagnation.
Exactly.
There's an anecdote in the text that pushes this idea to its absolute, most terrifying extreme.
Yes. The Adolf Hitler anecdote.
Yeah. It focuses on Hitler. Before he became the architect of one of the greatest atrocities in human history, Hitler actually wanted to be an artist.
Right. At 18, he took his inheritance, moved to Vienna, and applied to the Academy of Fine Arts.
He applied twice, actually, and later to the School of Architecture.
Right. He really tried to go down that path.
But we don't know him as a painter. Because resistance beat him.
It completely defeated him.
He couldn't face the work of becoming an artist. And the assertion the text makes here is just stunning.
It really gives you pause.
It suggests that it was actually easier for Hitler to start World War II than it was for him to face a blank square of canvas.
Now, when you first hear that, it sounds like an absurd overstatement.
It sounds incredibly hyperbolic.
It does. But when you apply the mechanics of the ego that we just discussed, it actually holds up perfectly.
Walk me through that.
Well, facing the blank canvas requires confronting the self.
Right.
It requires ultimate vulnerability, authentic creation, and moving into a higher sphere.
Which, as we established, the ego is terrified of.
Exactly. Now, on the other hand, destroying the world, manipulating the masses, engaging in warfare.
Those are lower sphere activities?
Pure lower sphere. They are driven by fear, control, and the basest tribal instincts.
Right. So the path of destruction required no spiritual elevation whatsoever.
None. Resistance blocked the higher calling, the art, and it facilitated the lower monstrous path because the lower path didn't threaten the ego's need for safety and control.
That is chilling. But it makes perfect sense within this framework.
It really does.
But, if this force is so undeniably toxic, and if it has the power to deform our spirits to the point of creating historical catastrophes,
or even just everyday quiet tragedies.
Right, just ruining a regular life, why are we so blind to it?
What do you mean?
I mean, if a bear attacks me in the woods, I know I'm being attacked, I fight back, I run.
Sure.
But resistance is actively destroying our potential.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize we're in a fight. We just think we're tired.
We don't see it because resistance is a shapeshifter.
A shapeshifter.
Yeah, it operates purely by deception.
Okay.
If it showed us its true face, which is really just our own raw, unadulterated fear, we might feel shame.
Right. We'd realize we were just being cowards.
Exactly. And shame is a very powerful motivator. It might actually drive us to sit down and do the work just to prove we aren't afraid.
Like a spite motivation.
Right.
Right.
Resistance knows this, so it never, ever shows you the fear directly. Instead, it assumes highly convincing, very reasonable disguises.
And the most ubiquitous disguise, I think, the one that catches almost everyone, is procrastination.
Oh, absolutely. Procrastination is its favorite mask.
But it's a very specific brand of procrastination. It's not a definitive rejection of the work.
No, because a definitive rejection would cause an immediate existential crisis.
Right. If you looked in the mirror and said, I am never going to write my symphony, I am abandoning my dream forever, you would break down.
The grief would be intolerable.
You'd hit rock bottom.
Exactly. So resistance offers you a much softer, much more comfortable lie.
It lets you say, I am absolutely going to write my symphony. I'm just going to start tomorrow.
Tomorrow, it's the perfect crime.
It really is. Because you get to keep the identity.
The identity of being a writer or an entrepreneur.
Yes, you get to walk around feeling like a creative person without having to actually do any of the terrifying work today.
You maintain the fantasy of the unlived life while remaining perfectly safe in your current comfort zone.
And procrastination is rarely just a single event, right?
No, it calcifies into a habit.
Yeah, you don't just put off your work for a day, you put it off until your deathbed.
You see this everywhere in everyday life.
Oh, everywhere.
Like the treadmill purchased with intense motivation on January 1st.
Which inevitably becomes a very expensive clothing rack by February.
Exactly. Or the language learning app that sends you notifications you swipe away for 6 straight months.
I'll learn Spanish next week.
Right. We tell ourselves we just haven't found the right time. But time has nothing to do with it.
It is the invisible force wearing the mask of later.
Perfect way to put it.
And, to prop up that disguise, resistance brings in what Pressfield calls the spin doctor.
Ah, yes. Rationalization.
Rationalization.
Yeah.
This is where it gets incredibly insidious. Because the excuses we give ourselves aren't usually lies.
No.
They're often completely factual.
This is the sheer brilliance of the ego. It doesn't need to lie to you if the truth works better.
Right.
Rationalization presents you with a series of highly plausible, totally legitimate justifications for why you simply cannot engage with your calling today.
Like, your spouse might actually be in their 8th month of pregnancy.
That's a real expense.
Your department at work might truly be undergoing a massive, chaotic restructuring.
You might genuinely be running on 3 hours of sleep.
Exactly. And resistance weaponizes these truths.
Yes, it does.
It uses your real-life circumstances to build an airtight legal case for why you get a pass today.
And the harsh reality that we have to swallow here is that while those excuses are completely true,
They are entirely irrelevant to the soul's calling.
they mean nothing to the work.
The book brings up Leo Tolstoy as an example.
Yes, Tolstoy had 13 children.
13 kids. I mean, the amount of chaos in a house with 13 children in the 19th century is just unfathomable.
It's hard to even picture.
Yet he still managed to write War and Peace.
Right, or consider people who write brilliant novels from prison cells.
Or people who launch massive social movements while battling severe illnesses.
The legitimate excuses are real, and they are difficult. But the creative self doesn't care.
It really doesn't.
Rationalization allows you to feel like a deeply responsible adult. You're tending to the crisis at work, you're being a good partner.
All while quietly allowing you to abandon the one thing you were uniquely put on this earth to do. It's devastating when you frame it like that.
It is.
Now, we've been talking about the quiet disguises, right?
Yeah, putting things off, making excuses.
Right. But there are much louder disguises, too. Things that look like massive action, but are actually just elaborate avoidance strategies.
Oh, you're talking about drama.
Yes. The text points out how we use drama as a shield against doing the work.
Drama is an incredibly potent symptom of resistance.
It really is.
Think about it. Creating soap operas in our daily lives takes a tremendous amount of energy.
So much energy.
And that is energy actively diverted away from creation.
Let's compare the two. Think about the solitary, agonizing, completely unglamorous work of, say, sitting in a room and designing a new software interface for a year.
It's brutal. You get no immediate feedback, no applause, no dopamine hit.
Exactly. Now compare that to picking a massive, explosive fight with your sibling.
Or bringing home a wildly inappropriate romantic partner.
Yes.
Yeah.
The drama yields immediate results.
Instant gratification.
You get attention, you get a huge spike of adrenaline. The text actually calls it a faux form of fame.
That's a great term for it.
It's so much easier to get busted sleeping with your colleague's spouse than it is to finish a dissertation on quantum mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
You get to feel intensely alive, incredibly busy, and overwhelmed by the sheer velocity of your life.
Right.
All while successfully ensuring that your actual work remains completely untouched.
You often see entire family systems participate in this dynamic completely unconsciously.
Really? How so?
Well, if the level of drama drops below a certain threshold,
Right.
say there's suddenly peace and quiet in the house,
Okay.
and everyone finally has the space to actually look at their own lives and their own unfulfilled potential.
One will panic.
Yes,
Yeah.
someone will instinctively amp the chaos right back up. Someone gets sick, someone quits a job dramatically, someone manufactures a crisis out of thin air.
Just to keep the noise going.
Because a system in a state of constant crisis is a system that isn't evolving.
And resistance thrives on a lack of evolution.
Exactly.
Which leads us to perhaps the most controversial disguise in this whole philosophy.
I know where you're going with this.
The trap of healing.
Yes.
And I want to really dig into this because it pushes right up against our modern understanding of mental health and self-care.
It definitely causes some friction for people.
Right. It's the idea that you have to completely fix your personal life, resolve all your childhood trauma, and completely optimize your emotional state before you are ready to do your work.
The endless preparation phase.
Exactly. The text calls this endless preparation a form of resistance. And I have to admit, my initial reaction to that is, well, it's defensive.
It is a jarring concept, especially today.
Right, because the language of therapy and self-optimization is everywhere now.
We've really internalized this idea that we are these broken machines.
That must be fully repaired before we can be put back to use.
Exactly. But the argument here is that the pursuit of perfect emotional symmetry can become an endless loop.
You can just get stuck in it.
You can spend your entire life analyzing the injustices of your childhood. And resistance absolutely loves this.
Because you're still not doing the work.
Right. Resistance knows that the more psychic energy you expend dredging up the past and trying to achieve this state of perfect psychological readiness,
the less juice you have left to actually sit down and paint or write or build your company. But okay, let me argue the other side of this for a second.
go for it.
If someone is dealing with severe burnout or they are carrying genuine heavy clinical trauma, telling them to ignore it and just do the work sounds incredibly dismissive.
It does. It sounds harsh.
It sounds like that toxic hustle culture we see all over social media. You know, the guys yelling at you to wake up at 4 a.m. and grind until your eyes bleed.
Right, the Sigma male grind set.
Exactly. So how do we distinguish between a genuine need for rest or therapy and resistance just disguised as healing?
This is such an important distinction. We make that distinction by separating the personal ego from the creative self.
Okay, unpack that.
This isn't about ignoring clinical issues, and it's definitely not about embracing toxic productivity.
Those are ego-driven too, right?
Exactly. Toxic hustle culture is usually about the ego seeking external validation. Money, status, followers.
Right.
Pressfield is talking about the soul seeking expression. The core argument here is that the part of you that creates the genius, the soul, whatever you want to call it, is bulletproof.
Bulletproof.
It is entirely uncorrupted by what your parents did to you or by the daily neuroses of your life.
That's a profound thought.
It is. In fact, artists often use that very trauma as the raw material for their work.
So you're saying the creative engine itself doesn't actually need to be repaired before it can run.
Exactly. The personal life might be a total mess, but the creative self is intact.
Resistance tries to blur those lines.
Resistance intentionally conflates the two. It whispers to you, you are way too emotionally dysregulated to write this book. You need to do another 6 months of therapy first.
You're not ready.
Right. But the truth is, engaging in the work is often the mechanism of healing itself.
Oh, I love that.
Finding your center of self-sovereignty through your calling is one of the most powerful ways to stabilize a chaotic personal life.
So you don't wait until you are fully healed to begin your work.
No. You do your work, and in the process of acting authentically, you actually begin to heal.
There's a story the author shares in the book that illustrates this beautifully, and it's so mundane that it just hurts.
The dishwashing story?
Yes, the dishwashing story. He talks about this period where he was running away from his writing. He was living in this cheap sublet in New York.
Miserable.
Totally miserable. And he finally forces himself to sit at the typewriter. He writes for 2 hours, and it's absolute trash.
Just terrible writing.
Terrible. He stops, gets up, goes into the kitchen, and looks at this massive pile of dirty dishes that have literally been sitting in the sink for 10 days.
Right.
He starts washing them and suddenly realizes he's whistling.
He feels perfectly happy.
Exactly. And why is he whistling?
Not because the dishes are getting clean.
No. He's whistling because he finally faced the dragon.
He sat down and did the work.
The quality of the writing was entirely secondary. He overcame the resistance for those 2 hours, and the reward for that victory was a sudden, profound sense of peace.
Which is so telling.
Right, because prior to that moment, if he had washed those dishes instead of writing,
If he had told himself, I need to get my physical environment perfectly clean before I can be creative.
That would have just been another disguise.
Yeah.
But doing the dishes after the work is just doing the dishes.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we accept this reality, that resistance is an intractable, shape-shifting, invisible force that never ever sleeps, and that it uses our own biology, our real-world problems, and our own desires for healing against us. How do we actually live with it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because you can't out-argue it. You can't outsmart a force of nature.
No, you can't negotiate with gravity.
Right.
If you want to fly, you have to build an airplane. You have to fundamentally change your operating system.
Okay, so what is the airplane in this metaphor?
The transition that Pressfield outlines is moving from being an amateur to turning pro.
Turning pro.
This is the hinge upon which this entire philosophy swings.
Let's dissect the amateur mindset first then, because most of us start there, and honestly, a lot of us stay there, even if we are making a living at what we do.
True. The defining characteristic of the amateur is that they let their emotions dictate their actions.
Right.
The amateur plays for fun, or they play for the fantasy of the outcome. You know, they want the fame or the money.
Right.
They also heavily over-identify with their art. They walk around thinking, I am a writer.
Why is that a problem, though? Shouldn't you identify with your work?
Because their identity is so enmeshed with the work, any failure of the work feels like a literal death to the ego.
Oh. So rejection isn't just about the manuscript, it's about them.
Exactly. It's too much pressure. And most importantly, the amateur waits for inspiration to strike, or for the fear to dissipate before they even begin.
That is the deadliest trap.
It really is.
We say things like, I don't feel inspired today, so I won't paint. Or, I feel absolutely terrified of launching this business, which must mean I'm not ready.
The amateur genuinely believes that fear is an indicator of unreadiness.
And the professional?
The professional knows that fear is a permanent resident. It never leaves.
It never goes away?
Never. The professional treats their calling not as some mystical, precious identity, but as a blue-collar job.
Just punching the clock.
Exactly. It is not glamorous. You show up every day, you stay on the job all day, and you accept absolutely no excuses, least of all your own emotional state.
The example of Henry Fonda in the text really hammered this home for me.
Oh, the stage fright.
Yeah. We tend to think of success as the eradication of fear, right?
Right, like once you make it, you're fearless.
We assume that once we hit a certain level of mastery, the dread just magically goes away.
Yeah.
But Henry Fonda, even at age 75.
After decades of being one of the most celebrated actors on the planet.
Yes, he was still physically throwing up in his dressing room before every single stage performance.
Think about the mechanics of that for a second. The fear never left him.
Never.
Decades of evidence proving he was a master actor did absolutely nothing to quiet the ego's terror of stepping out onto the stage.
The ego was still screaming at him to stay in the cave.
Exactly. What made Henry Fonda a professional wasn't a lack of fear. It was the fact that he wiped his mouth, cleaned himself up, and marched out onto the stage anyway.
Every single night.
He forced himself into action in spite of the visceral terror, because he trusted, from years of experience, that once the action began, the fear would recede.
It's a radical prioritization of action over emotion.
Perfectly said.
You are separating the doing of the work from the feeling about the work.
Yes.
And there is a really practical tool suggested in the book to help create this separation. It's the concept of me, Inc.
I love this concept because it completely neutralizes that over-identification problem we just talked about.
Right. You incorporate yourself.
You become your name, Inc. When you do this, you create a psychological distance between the creator and the manager.
You're splitting yourself into two roles.
Exactly. You are the CEO of the company, and you are also the entry-level employee.
So on Monday morning, the CEO version of you sits in the conference room of your mind and creates the weekly assignments.
Right. The CEO decides we are writing chapter 3 on Tuesday.
And when Tuesday rolls around, you take off the CEO hat and you put on the employee hat.
And the employee doesn't get to evaluate the assignment emotionally.
Right. The employee doesn't get to say, you know, boss, I'm just not feeling chapter 3 today. I'm feeling a little insecure about my prose.
The employee would be fired for that. The employee just executes the task because that's the job.
It strips away all the preciousness.
It does. You stop evaluating your self-worth and you just execute the reps.
Which leads to a phenomenon the text describes as the magic of making a start.
Yes.
When you strip away the emotion, sit down, and commit to the purely physical action of the work, the environment actually changes.
You aren't waiting for the muse to arrive before you work. You start working, and the muse has to catch up to you.
There's a brilliant quote from the author, Somerset Maugham, that perfectly encapsulates this.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah. Someone asked him if he writes on a strict schedule or if he only writes when he is struck by inspiration.
And he said,
Maugham replied, "I write only when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp."
that is just the ultimate flex of the professional.
That really is.
But think about why that works. By performing the mundane physical act of sitting down at the desk at 9 o'clock every single day, he builds a container of discipline.
A container.
Yeah, and because the container is there, the inspiration has a place to fill. He understands that action precedes motivation.
You don't have to feel good to start.
No, you don't have to feel confident. You don't have to feel healed. You just have to sit down.
I do want to push back on the reality of living this way, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
The text uses an analogy of the Marine Corps to describe this mindset.
Right.
It says that Marines are taught to love being miserable, to embrace the suck, and that the artist has to learn to be miserable too.
Yes.
I have to ask, why?
What do you mean?
I mean, if the work we are meant to do, our highest calling, requires us to adopt the mentality of a soldier trudging through the mud, if it's supposed to be this miserable, joyless grind, why would anyone want to pursue it?
That's a very fair question.
What is the point of the unlived life if living it is just constant suffering?
That is the most important distinction we have to make today. And it requires a complete reframing of what is actually causing the suffering.
Okay.
It is not the work that is miserable.
No.
The act of creation, the moment of flow, that alignment with your calling, that is joyful. It is transcendent.
Okay, so what's the miserable part?
What is miserable is the resistance,
Oh.
the fear, the self-doubt, the rationalizations, the agonizing friction of just getting yourself into the chair. That is the misery.
So the misery is the commute, not the destination.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. The Marine Corps analogy isn't about making the art itself a grueling punishment.
Right.
It's about building the emotional and mental endurance necessary to survive the resistance.
To survive the commute.
Yes. The professional arms themselves with this lunch pail mentality because they expect the resistance to be there every single morning.
You're not surprised by it.
No, they expect the first hour of writing or coding or strategizing to feel like pulling teeth.
So they don't panic when they feel the dread.
Exactly. They say, right on schedule, time to get to work.
You essentially armor yourself against the friction of starting, knowing that the friction isn't permanent.
You endure the misery of the resistance so that you can pierce the membrane.
Pierce the membrane.
Yeah, because once you break through that initial wall of avoidance, once you actually engage with the material, the resistance falls away.
It just disappears.
It does. The territory of the work itself provides sustenance. It gives back energy. It connects you to the self.
But there is a dragon guarding the gate to that territory.
Always. And the amateur wants the gold without fighting the dragon, and so they just turn back every time they see it.
And the professional.
The professional accepts that fighting the dragon is just the daily cost of doing business.
You survive the ego to access the self.
That's exactly it.
It's just such a profound shift in perspective to stop viewing the dread and the procrastination and the fear as stop signs.
They aren't stop signs.
Or indicators of failure. And instead, you just view them as a toll booth.
A toll booth. I like that.
You just have to pay the toll. And you pay it with action, regardless of how you feel. If there's one thing to take from this, it's that the things you avoid the most are often the things that matter the most. And that feeling you've been calling laziness might actually be resistance, not a sign to stop.